Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. If you're ready to take control of your destiny, build wealth, and live life on your own terms, this is the place for you. Each week, Nat and I will talk about business, franchising, and personal growth to help make you more successful. Good morning, Nat.
Good morning, Pete.
Whoa, you sound excited. Are you as excited as I am today?
I don't even think that's possible.
Come on. I am pumped up.
What do you got going today?
Oh, you know what? This weekend is going to be huge for college football. I'm super excited for tomorrow. We've got Alabama playing Tennessee, both undefeated.
Yeah.
We got Michigan and Penn State playing, Big Ten rivalries, both undefeated, again, ranked teams. It's going to be an exciting weekend of college football.
You're definitely in the college football zone this year.
Yeah,
sure.
well, if you watched the Bears last night, did you watch the Bears last night on Thursday Night Football? Talk about boring.
Yeah, I fell asleep. What happened?
That's exactly my point. Nothing happened. It was a terribly boring game, and I think the critics would say the same thing. But college is exciting. So speaking of exciting, I thought today what we do is we share the 8 ways to help ensure the success of small business owners. Sound good?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. We talked a little bit about recessions during our last podcast, but I thought we'd talk about now, how can you do things to ensure that your small business is successful? And so we're going to first start with, and I know you've launched multiple different businesses from a concept, an idea to a business. And I think the first thing you have to have as a small business owner is having a business plan.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with that. I always say failing to plan is planning to fail. So I think you have to put in the work of having a business plan. I have another catchphrase that I like too. And it's basically plan your day or plan your week or plan your month before you start it. So, I mean, you really have to plan your business out before you start it, because otherwise you're just going to be wandering around in the wilderness and, wondering why you're not getting results.
Yeah, we work with people that invest in franchises, and the idea is that they have a plan, but you can't just rely on the franchisor's plan. You have to have your own specific plan for your franchise business or any business. You have to have a plan. And part of that plan is this idea of you've got financial metrics or pro forma in there. So do you develop pro formas when you put together your business plan?
Yes. I think a lot of people tend to, probably spend too much time on the pro forma. I mean, it's pretty straightforward in general. I think what you have to really, as business owners, we need to be willing to spend less time sitting behind our computer, just working on a spreadsheet, and more time. Like, my business plans are going to be more heavy on what am I going to do? So local community events, things I'm going to sponsor, people I'm going to hire, so yes to pro forma, but the business plan needs to be super detailed on what are we going to do?
Right. Absolutely. You got to have that content or that action plan of how you're going to, who's your customer, where you're going to find those customers, all that kind of stuff. What kind of employees you're going to have, what skills do they have to have? I agree with that. But I think a pro forma is a roadmap. It's a starting point. And we'll talk a little bit about how that adjusts. Now, let me ask you this. From the standpoint of a business, do you do an annual plan? So you have your main plan as you launch the business, but do you take some time in the fourth quarter to prepare to, kind of have a plan for the next year?
I kind of got into this rhythm, and I think it's because I read a book, and I actually don't remember the name of it, but it's the concept of trying to get done in 3 months what the average person gets done in 12 months. So I actually do quarterly planning and push very hard every single quarter. I like having that rhythm too, because then you're not just New Year's Eve you're writing I have to do some goal setting or whatever. It's like we do it every quarter, set new goals, keep on moving the chains, use a football analogy, and keep on going.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that adjustment here in a little bit. Now, when you put together a business plan and you have employees, do you kind of share the key initiatives and the principles of the business with the employees so everybody's on the same page of where you're going with the business?
Yeah, 100%. That's critical. And I mean, ideally kind of have them bought into part of the process. So, like I was talking about the quarterly plan, like we'll work on that together as a team, and they'll actually be the ones that are coming up with the different metrics or things that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, so let's talk
Mhm.
about that. So the second point was going to be, or the second thing is adjusting your plan. So it sounds like you're always adjusting your plan because business is fluid from that standpoint.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to think back too far to COVID, right? Where all of a sudden, it's like you're supposed to stay home. It's like, well, how do we make money if everybody has to stay home? So it's like, yeah, you have to be able to adjust.
Yeah, you have to adjust. And from your standpoint, you look at it. It's and I use the example of this adjustment, and the best example or the term I always like to use is this general. And this general was being interviewed by this reporter, and the reporter goes, "How did the battle plan work?" From a standpoint, and the general says, "Hey, the battle plan, the minute the battle started, was worthless." But putting together the battle plan was priceless. And I think that's right. I mean, you're just once you start that business, it's gonna change. It's not gonna be what you expected, and you have to adjust for sure from a standpoint. And it sounds like you do that on a quarterly basis. You're always adjusting and fine tuning and stuff like that. Now, sometimes small business owners, they get proud, right? They get proud. They're struggling with something and they don't go get the support or help they need from others to get through that, to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think also being a business owner can be a little bit isolating to some extent. It's not, quite the same as going into corporate where you've got, a whole floor of guys and, you're always working on stuff and collaborating. I mean, you have your own business, it's local, but you don't necessarily have that many peers. But in the franchise world, because you're going to have franchise owners that are all over the country, like that's a good opportunity to reach out and leverage the franchise support or the network and annual conferences and all that. And then even like for myself, I just hired a very, expensive business coach, but it's already paying for itself. So I think that's another idea or way to kind of keep on growing.
Yeah, definitely. When people invest in franchise, I always tell them leverage the support from the franchisor because that's part of what you're paying for. And if you're struggling, so if your revenue isn't, hitting where you want it to be, go back to the franchisor and say, listen, our average job size is, below the franchise average, right? Just go get help or leverage, to your point, the franchisees, the other ones, your peers, because they could be great support.
Yeah.
And I'm also, like you, a huge fan of hiring a business coach, right? And you can have great business acumen. And you've had how many businesses? A ton of businesses you've launched, and you're still hiring a business coach. That tells you how important it is to get support from others to drive your business.
Yeah, I think like I said, it can be owning your own business long term can be a little bit isolating, but it's good to get like an accountability coach or business coach, and also somebody that just helps you get out of your comfort zone, because that that can happen to all of us, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And when we talk about a business and you have that plan and you're moving forward and you're adjusting that plan, I'm a huge fan. And the third thing we'll talk about is this idea of tracking and managing the numbers, right? Numbers are the language of business.
Totally. There's a lot of franchises that are following the book called Traction. And Traction is all about having a dashboard and having numbers or metrics that you're like each one of your key employees is accountable for. We implemented that a few years back, and it's actually been hugely helpful. And it also gives you like kind of that early warning indicator, like if your say your closing ratio drop down or something, then all of a sudden it's going to like show up red on your dashboard, and then you're going to be like, let's fix this, let's dig into this, get more information.
So you have a dashboard, which is kind of, you understand all your numbers. And do you look at that daily, weekly? How often do you look at your dashboard?
We do weekly. We have like a weekly traction call.
Yeah, I know. I look at my dashboard every day, and
Yes.
it's key when you have a dashboard. There, a lot of times, is some vital few numbers that drive your business,
Yep.
right? There are some core numbers that you absolutely have to know what those numbers are. And to your point, be watching them because they can be an early indicator of good or bad, right? From a standpoint. So they are certainly from that standpoint. What about this idea? And we talk about a success of a small business is about people, right? And I think I've heard you say before, hire slow, fire fast.
Right.
People are key to success.
Yes. And you know what? That's kind of the joy of having your own business or franchise, is that you're able to kind of create a company or culture that you want to be a part of. So if you're, let's be honest, like if you're not enjoying it or not having fun or enjoying the people that work for you, then maybe it's just time to fire fast.
Well, I mean, if it's not a good fit, I mean, I know, I suspect you're very methodical in the way in which you interview people to make sure that they're a good fit for the culture, because they have to be a good fit from a standpoint. I mean, I know companies that literally they have all the employees interview the future manager just to kind of see if they think they're going to be a good addition to the culture of the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and also usually, within the first 30 days, if somebody's going to be a good fit, like after you hire them. I don't really tend to take on too many projects. So if somebody, you get the feeling after the first few weeks or month that they're good, this is going to be a nonstop project, and it's better for everybody. Kind of like to free them up for other opportunities, if you want to
Yeah,
put it that way.
absolutely. Right. If it's not a good fit, I mean, you got to cut your losses fast, right? Because somebody that's not a good fit of your culture can really mess things up.
Totally.
They can do a lot of damage. And so we call a spade. And from that standpoint, we make our decision to move on and go from there. Okay, so people in today's world, especially, it's really hard to get good people. We got to get good people. They got to be a good fit of our culture. And if they're not, we got to protect that culture and move them on. All right. How about this idea of leading versus managing? So we have those great employees, but there are some people that they really kind of get into the business and they're just managing. They're micromanaging, that kind of stuff. So I think leadership is key to success of a small business.
Yeah, I think sometimes you just have to get out of your employees' way and let them, do what you hired them to do. I've actually observed quite a few good employees leave because they were being micromanaged. So, I mean, I think what we were just talking about, if you hire the right people and it's a good fit, and they should naturally do what's needed, and not need to be micromanaged like hours a day or anything.
Right. And I think it's delegating responsibilities. Or is traction a pretty good way to kind of focus on leading opposed to managing, right? Because you hire the right people, you give them the right responsibilities, and you give them the right, for lack of better terms, objectives, and then you let them go, and you're always kind of dialing it in. So that I think is a mechanism.
Yeah, I think so, because everybody then also, it's crystal clear what they're accountable for. And there's like literally no place to hide.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have like weekly stand-up meetings with your team, and everybody is like, yes, yes, thumbs up, thumbs down, like I'm on target, not on target. You really can't hide for too long, because if you keep on showing up to your weekly meeting and you're like, no, I didn't make my goal. No, I didn't make my goal. You're gonna stick out pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's called leadership, making the tough decisions, right? Yep. Where we put our money, all that kind of stuff, and holding people accountable. So that's not managing, that's leading. All right. One of your favorite ones, the next one is connect to your community. And you always kind of say, be, super local, or what's your phrase you use when we talk about connecting with the community? Hyper local. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with, a lot of executives, they've been like jet setting, they've been flying all over, 80% travel for years and years. The cool thing about owning your own franchising is always going to be hyper local. So you're going to have, maybe a population of 100,000 or 150,000, and then you're going to go deep. And And I think it's just a great opportunity to be involved with your community, build those relationships.
And that could be part of organizations like the JCs or the Chamber of Commerce and stuff like that. So you can be involved with other business owners, but it's also maybe doing things for the community, like sponsoring that little league team or something like that.
Yeah, totally. And then I like too that you're creating a lot of jobs right here in your community also, so that feels good too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when we talk about being connected to your community, that's not only physical, but that's also digitally. I mean, you have to have a presence in your community on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, all that kind of stuff. People forget that.
Yeah, that's the people are on all these social platforms, so it's important.
Yeah, I guess that's your digital.
Did you get your Instagram and TikTok going, Pete?
I might Snapchat. Fall a little short. I might fall a little short on that one from a standpoint. It just
hey, you can hire somebody that loves that stuff.
I know. I know it's an important part of the business. It's not something that brings me joy at all. So,
exactly.
From some point, much rather be doing fun podcasts with you. Certainly.
There you go.
Now, what about this idea I think the next one we'll talk about is this reinvent or revitalize your business, right? The things are always changing, right? And if you try to continue to do the business the same way you've done it every year, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's interesting, even with different technologies, or you can even think about like cell phones, right? We had like the pagers, right? And if you had just kept the pager, never got the brick phone, and then that evolved to be like the flip phone, the Motorola Razr. I think everybody loved back
the BlackBerry,
the BlackBerry. And now we all have the iPhones or the Android phones. So yeah, I think you have to keep on evolving. Otherwise, and the great thing, I see actually more of my operations being moved over to technology and different things, but it actually does save me on the human cost of the administrative or overhead, I guess, of employees. So I think it is important to be have that learning mentality and try to actually also hire employees that have that, they're open and want to learn new things, not like in a rut, or we're going to get left behind.
Yeah. Well, you have to be watching and evolving. I mean, there's no question, or to your point, you get left behind. What about this idea as we look at revitalizing your business? So you can evolve, but you also may add additional services or products that your business offers to enhance the revenue or to continue to expand your business.
Yeah. That's what I like about franchising. Like at corporate, they're usually, always kind of working on that. And then, with hundreds of owners, a lot of times, some owners will have a good idea and then they'll roll it out to the whole franchise system. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't be like so worried about getting creative, but maybe, trying to work together with the parent company, try to figure out new things. But there's always, you got to believe there's always more opportunities, right? One thing was one example of that is a Subway owner that I had run into a few years ago, and he actually had bought a Subway franchise that was not doing well. But he was like, I'm going to start doing catering and delivering more. And so then he, went business to business, old fashioned shoe leather. And so that's kind of a good example of revitalizing your business because, back then Subway didn't necessarily do that much delivering, right? But that's certainly a way to grow your top line.
Yeah, I think Assertive Pro Painters.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, they were the number one, B2C going to homeowners or residential painting. And somebody comes up with the idea, why don't we add commercial painting?
Yeah.
Right. And now commercial painting is 45% of the business, and it's drove all their franchisees' revenues up. So that's an example of adding an additional service or a different segment industry to the business model.
Yeah. Yeah. And then all that's just incremental and a lot of it drops to the bottom line. So that's great.
So fun. So those are the 8 ways in which you can help become successful as a small business owner. Nat, it has been a pleasure as usual.
All right.
I gotta go get ready for game day, baby.
Gotta get in tailgating mode.
Tailgating. Yes, absolutely. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com.
And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback or suggestions for topics.